If you want your life to be meaningfully better, you need to do more of some things and less of some other things. In James Clear's 321 Thursday email this week, if you're not familiar, James Clear is the author of Atomic Habits. Sends out this email every Thursday. It's a good one. Frankly, it's the only email that I subscribe to that I read on a regular basis. But 321 is 3 ideas from James Clear, 2 quotes from others, and 1 question for you. And the 1 question for you this week is, what is something that you could do twice as much of? You could double how much you're doing something. It would make your life meaningfully better. And then on the other hand, what is something that if you were to do half as much of that thing, that would make your life meaningfully better? Let's talk about that. Good morning, Nicole. If you're new around here, Nicole is not, but if you're new around here, my name is Jeff. And every morning I walk over to the coffee shop and I invite you to walk along with me. Hey, Scott. Glad you're here this morning as well. Nicole says I missed Java with Jeff earlier, so I'm here for the recap. Okay, well, here we go. There's a nice little Easter egg, too. I host a show every weekday morning inside the Entree Architect Network. Nicole and Scott, both part of that network, and the usual suspects, regular attenders, audience members for Java with Jeff. And most days, this Walk With Me segment here on Substack is an extension of what we talk about on Java with Jeff. And the reason I started doing this is because I love Java with Jeff and everyone in the Entree Architect Network, and the things that we talk about on Java with Jeff, the mindsets, the mindfulness that's necessary for growth. It's not specific to architects. It's specific to humans. So this is the opportunity to expand the audience, expand the conversation. And so still looking for fish. In Java with Jeff, Scott mentioned that it hasn't been raining in Oregon and the fish aren't, what do they call that? Did you say the fish aren't flowing? Fish aren't swimming, doing their usual migration, I guess. I don't know if I got all the terms right. That doesn't sound like a good thing. It is still cold here in Indianapolis, and also it's January. We are headed into what is historically probably starting next week, like next week through mid-February. It's usually the coldest time of our winter, where we have things like the blizzard of 78, where we've had these, weeks of double-digit below zero temperatures and things like that. So we'll see. It's warmer today. Yesterday it was about 18. Today it's evolving 27. The wind's blowing again. It was yesterday too, but it's harsh. But that's right. So let's walk through the arc. Let's unpack this. Could you do twice as much of or half as much of, and it make your life meaningfully better? I said on Java with Jeff, it's the way that I come up with these topics is I experience life, right? I have conversations. I do my work with my clients. I teach right now. It's the graduate students. In the spring, it was undergrad. All the things of life. And then I go to my usual resources. I scroll through Instagram, looking for posts about growth, about mindfulness, about mindsets. It might be from the Stoics, it might be Buddhism, it might be any number of things. It might be James Clear, it might be Mel Robbins, it might be Simon Sinek. There's all kinds of inspiration out there, right? But and I'll go to Substack and I'll start scrolling on Substack. And one of the things that I know, and I don't know if it's me necessarily or if it's the algorithm, it's a combination of the two, but algorithms work where they feed us more of what we consume. And I think we're in a catch-22 right now. I open up Instagram and, I'm there, honestly, I'm there to see what's happened. What have I missed? That's definitely the truth. But then it's like you can't get out of that cycle of, right now it's the horrors in Minneapolis. You can't get out of that cycle. You scroll and scroll and scroll, and it's more and more and more. And sorry, I just read Nicole's comments. I'll get to the comments in a second. And I know I need less of that in my life. I know. Not that I want to stick my head in the sand, but being immersed, constantly immersed in all of this stuff is not helping me. I'm not helping anybody in Minneapolis. Right? I repost some things. There's some, sharing of information, but other than that, I'm not actively doing anything. And staying immersed in the crap just means you covered it. See, close to my neighborhood is having a fishing derby next week in Mesa, Arizona, in the desert. The world is backwards. Yeah, the world is backwards. The world's upside down. Yes. Went to yoga last night and had a substitute teacher. The instructor was Thursday nights. I usually do the 7:30 vinyasa class that Paula teaches. And last night there was a substitute, and it's kind of funny. The the substitute yoga instructor's name was L. the upside down yoga. We're going to we're doing Stranger Things yoga. We didn't float in any tanks or anything, or in the air for that matter. But anyway, what could I do? What are the things that I could do more of that would make my life meaningfully better? The entirety of the 321 email this week is really not sure what they got going on there. It's really about two things, I think. I think this is what we kind of broke down and decided on Java with Jeff, is that it is between the ideas from James Clear and the quotes from others and the one question for you, that the theme of the email this week is really authenticity and action. It is so true. The things. What are the things that I need? What are the things that are me? What are the things that are true for me and my growth? And then what do I need to be doing? How do I need to be taking action? So this, this idea of our lives being meaningfully better, that's not based on anybody else. That's not based on what some guru says, some book that you read. You can certainly gain wisdom. You can find strategies, inspiration, whatever. But ultimately, what makes it meaningful for you? That should be the litmus test. If we were all living our authentic and meaningful lives, how would this world be different? Well, that's a can of worms, isn't it? But what are the things? There's another. I think it's the first idea from James Clear in the email that talks about the things that you do that make a difference that seem effortless. How can you? What are those things? How can you find those things that you seem to be able to do with very little effort and put more effort into those? Like double down on those. It's basically probably the idea that led to this question would be my guess. As he's writing this email this week. But what makes life meaningful? We didn't even really unpack this. Or Jeff, what makes your life meaningful? What's your why? Simon Sinek. What gets you up in the morning? What fills you? I think that's one of the things that I see a lot right now too, is everything is so draining. We're all doing a lot of things that drain us. And maybe there aren't so many of us that are doing things right now that fill us, that fulfill us, that energize us. That's game changing, right? When we can live a life, when we can do work that fills us, that energizes us, that fulfills us, that changes our lives. That's meaningful. So whether you're thinking about this idea, what can you do more of? What should you do less of to make your life more meaningful? Right? Whether you're taking that from the perspective of work, your business or your job, whatever your situation is, or in relationships, family, friends, significant others, or for yourself. And I'll always argue that you have to start with yourself. Right? It's if you're not fulfilled, if you're not energized, I talked about this a little bit yesterday, I think. Right? If you're not energized, it's hard to bring energy for anybody else. If you're not energized, if you don't have space for your own stuff, then it is hard to have space for anyone else. Yesterday, we talked about a conversation where someone was telling me that a friend of theirs had reached out, and they said, sure, let's talk or whatever. And they didn't show up well for that friend. And they realized we've been talking for days about this idea of showing up with no judgment, but with curiosity and kindness. And that was the exact of the way that they showed up for their friend. They were not curious because of the judgment, and they weren't kind. And they should have said no, right? They didn't have the space. They wanted to say yes because they loved their friend. They did say yes because they loved their friend, and later they realized that showing up didn't really turn out to be an act of love. That showing up was hurtful, and they had to go back and apologize for that, right? And it all came from not having the space in their own life right? Carrying their own things to the extent that they didn't have room, they didn't have space, they didn't have patience, they didn't have kindness, they didn't have curiosity, they didn't have all those things that were necessary to show up the way that their friend needed them to show up, the way that a good friend would show up. And that happens, right? We're in those places sometimes where this is real, this is life, this is human. And you can see posts on social media. And this is one of the things with influencers, right? There's so few. Speaking of judgment, there are so few influencers that are authentic. Right? You see this person saying this, doing this, using this, whatever it is. I love this. Someone did some kind of study. And they looked at all these influencer posts, and specifically the ones where, like, here's this person that, here's how you make $1 million in a month, whatever these stupid posts are, where they're claiming this is how you get rich, right? And they're standing there, sitting in a sports car next to a Bentley, or as if they're about to board their private plane, whatever. And the fact of the matter is, you can rent all of those things: the plane, the sports car, the luxury car, whatever. You can rent those by the hour. And that's what a lot of these people, as it turns out, that's what a lot of these people do, is they rent these things to project this image of wealth and expertise or whatever. And it's, somebody studied this and found out that a huge percentage of these quote unquote influencers that were sharing content like this were fake. They didn't own that car. They didn't own that plane. As people, if we were to all focus on meaning and purpose, what would that do? I don't know. But what I do know is I can look at areas in my life, maybe you're the same, where it's like, you know what, I'm doing these things. I mentioned this in Chat with Jeff. I've been thinking about that this week. It's been a long, cold winter, right? You get into the holiday season, not much moves business-wise. It gets really quiet. And so if you need to make money, right, if you need to generate business, it gets hard. And, if you are building, if you're running a business, this is a hard time of year to do that. That's why, the wisdom is you start booking for the beginning of the year towards the beginning of the fourth quarter. That's really how you need to do it. But, if you're caught in this cycle where you need to develop business, you need to generate revenue, in the short term, it gets really hard. And so I realized, the last couple of days and the motions that I'm going through, trying to ramp things up on the business front, there are things, I need to do this, I need to do that. And then the realization that, you know what, these are the things I'm working hard on. Some of these are things I'm working hard on that just are not, right? They're not paying dividends. They're not working, I guess would be one way to say it. And so maybe I need to be doing less of that and more of the things that are moving the needle in a different way to look at it. But that's the question. What are the things that if you did twice as much of it would make your life more meaningful And what are the things that if you did half as much of it would make your life more meaningful? There's a common word in there, right? Meaningful. So I made it to the coffee shop and the wind is howling. It must be. Looks of things just straight out of the south. That's pretty wild. I looked at the radar, but yeah, pretty much south. Why is it so cold? Anyway, I made it to the coffee shop. Thanks for walking with me. Have a great weekend, and I'll be back on Monday. Thanks, guys. Nicole, good luck in the fishing derby. Scott, I hope you find the fish. Thanks for walking with me.